Here, in the quiet corners of history, we find a story that speaks to the deepest parts of our daily lives. It was a scene of industry and hope. The sons of the prophets, a group of faithful students dedicated to the Lord, were building a bigger home because their old one was too crowded. They were growing, expanding, and working with their hands to create a place of fellowship. The prophet Elisha, their teacher and father in the faith, watched over them as they worked. The sun was warm upon their backs, and the river flowed peacefully beside them, a silent witness to their labor. It is a beautiful image. The man of God, not distant or removed, but present among his students in the dust and the heat of the day. Among these workers was a young man. Let us picture him clearly. He was eager to help, swinging his axe hard against a thick tree, but there was a hidden weight upon his mind, a worry that perhaps made his grip a little tighter than usual. The axe he was using was not his own. He had borrowed it. In those ancient days, an iron axe head was a tool of immense value not easily replaced. Suddenly, on a powerful swing, the silence of the afternoon was shattered. There was a sharp crack. The iron axe head broke free from the handle, flying through the air before landing in the river with a loud splash. It did not float. It did not drift. It sank immediately. "Alas, my master," the young man shouted to Elisha, his face filled with fear. "It was borrowed." All the work stopped. To the casual observer, this might seem like a small accident. But to lose a borrowed tool was a serious problem. It meant debt. It meant shame. It meant he had failed in a trust given to him. The young man stood by the water, looking down into the murky depths where his borrowed burden had disappeared, feeling helpless. Now, we must pause and consider what this moment tells us about God. In his criticism of the miracles of the Old Testament, one writer has said that we must admit there are some stories in the Bible which we cannot take literally, such as that of the axe head swimming at the word of Elisha. A tactful teacher, they suggest, will know how to get over the difficulty, perhaps by explaining it away as a myth. The higher critic, it is to be supposed, thinks it childish to accept such stories as these. They might argue that any critic could readily set aside all miracles, dismissing them as impossible. The thought behind this skepticism is that these stories bring God down to this world as directly doing something for his children who need help. This intimacy is opposed to the modern revolutionary notion of the deity, which views God as sitting apart in the heavens while, by the inexorable loss of matter, the world swings along in its course. They imagine a God who is too busy with the stars to care about a piece of iron in a river. But really, this is not a modern notion at all. It is only the old doctrine of paganism, dressed up in modern clothes. The pagans talked of God as enthusiastically as might be, but they kept him distant. The truth of Scripture is far sweeter. Only in the Word, and in the Word made flesh, is God seen as one with his creatures, touched by their needs. He is able and ready to help in the greatest distress as well as in the comparatively trivial troubles. Unbelief would shut this God away from men. It wants a cold, mechanical universe. But the simplest soul that knows God's power to save and to help knows more than all these learned critics ever dreamt of. Such knowledge is open to babes, but is too deep for the wise and prudent. It is easy enough for the Christian to believe that God will intervene to help in great trials and desperate necessities. We believe he can part seas or stop the sun. But very often it is taken for granted that the Lord is too great to give attention to small details of life, the little burdens that it is thought can be endured alone or worried through with in some way. This story challenges that doubt. It tells us that God is ready to carry the little burdens as well as the great ones. He knows what makes up human life and how galling the little worries are to the spirits of men. Elisha, the man of God, did not rebuke him. He did not dismiss the loss as trivial. "Where did it fall?" Elisha asked calmly. The young man pointed a shaking finger at the spot. He did not have the power to retrieve it, but he knew where the loss had occurred. Then Elisha did something simple. He cut a stick from a tree. He didn't say any magic words. He just threw the stick into the water where the axe head had fallen. The stick floated for a moment, and then the laws of nature bowed to the compassion of God. Something amazing happened. The heavy, dark iron axe head rose up from the bottom and floated on the surface of the water like a piece of wood. The men all gasped. What was heavy had become light. What was lost was now within reach. "Pick it up," Elisha said simply to Aaron. The young man reached in and grabbed the iron, his face full of relief and wonder. By Elisha's word, the Lord caused the iron head to swim upon the surface of the river, and the young man took it up again. It was not too small a matter for the Lord to help the man out of his dilemma. We must realize that we have absolutely no strength of our own. The one who has no strength cannot bear up under the smallest of loads. God gives all we have. Therefore, it is misusing His gifts and distrusting His comforting presence to shut Him out of any experience that comes in life. It is precisely in this way, trying to carry the little cares ourselves, that we most frequently fail. The word of the Lord is, "Casting all your care upon Him, for He cares for you." All care, in small affairs and great ones, is to be left with Him, and He will do the caring. Thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit. It is because God is so great that He dwells with the humble and the poor who are rich toward God. As He lives with them, He can understand the perplexing cares that come to humble homes. As we reflect on this miracle, we find there are deeper lessons hidden within the symbols of the wood and the iron. First, there is a lesson for our physical lives, a bigger lesson regarding nature's remedies. Consider the axe head. It is metal, heavy, and dense. In the chemistry of our world, this can represent mercury or toxic elements that find their way into our food and our bodies. These toxins are like the heavy iron. They sink us, weighing down our health and vitality. And what was the remedy? A simple stick cut from a tree. With a simple natural food represented by the stick, the sickness caused by the bad element inside the body can be made to go away. The God of the Bible is the God of creation. He has provided simple, natural means to counteract the heavy burdens of a toxic world. Just as the wood caused the iron to release its grip on the riverbed, God's natural provisions help our bodies release what is harmful. But there is an even bigger lesson for our souls. To us, the first of these miracles may appear somewhat trivial, but we must remember the value of an iron axe head at that time. the inconvenience and delay caused to the builders, and the slur accruing to religion if it were irreparably lost. The story shows how keen was the sympathy of the great prophet for a poor man overtaken by an ordinary trouble, and how ready Elisha was to seek the help of God to redress the mischief. It is right to go to God about matters of this kind as well as greater issues. However, the spiritual picture is the most beautiful of all. The iron axe head represents the human heart. Burdened by sin, guilt, and worry, our hearts can become as heavy as lead at the bottom of the stream. We cannot lift ourselves. We cannot swim to the surface on our own. The stick that Elisha threw into the water represents the cross of Calvary. What wonders faith can do! When a splinter of the cross of Calvary is inserted into the waters of our despair, the heavy heart rises to the surface and swims. The wood of the cross meets the iron of our sin. The connection defies the gravity of our guilt. The Lord lifts us not because we are light, but because His grace changes our nature. Do not think your troubles are too small for God. Do not think your heart is too heavy to be lifted. Whether you are dealing with a lost tool, a physical illness, or a weary soul, the answer is the same. Cast your care upon Him. Look to the cross and watch as the heavy burdens of your life are made to float on the river of His grace.